Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to Abnormal Voyages. My name is David, and today we find ourselves in San Antonio, Texas. We are at what is probably the most famous and iconic place in the entire state, the Alamo. Everybody's always heard, remember the Alamo, but remember what exactly? Today, we're going to deep dive and find out all about it. Tag along.
We're going to a place that you've never heard of before. It's Abnormal Voyages. You're gonna learn something new. We're gonna open new doors. It's Abnormal Voyages.
The story of the Alamo is one of resilience and hope. On these grounds in 1836, roughly 200 men sacrificed their life fighting for something they believed in: freedom and independence.
Now before we go inside, I wanted to point out one thing to you here. This metal line represents where William B. Travis, supposedly before the battle, took his sword and drew a line here in the sand and basically told all his weary men, whoever was willing to die for freedom, for what they believe in, step over to my side. Those would be the ones that were remaining, and anybody on the other side was, of course, free to leave before the battle began. As legend goes, almost everybody stepped over the line to join him in the battle for the Alamo.
Here's a little closer look at that line, where all the brave men stepped over, even though they knew this was not a battle that they could win. Only one man didn't cross over.
We are now inside the actual Alamo. It is, of course, a little smaller than you may think, but there is plenty to see.
It wasn't only Texans who helped out at the Alamo. People came in from all over the United States to help Texas gain their independence. To honor the noble sacrifice that so many made, you'll find lots of state flags here in the Alamo that signifies where these people came from, and on the ribbon you'll see a little number that shows how many came from that specific state. This time period wasn't too far off from the United States gaining independence of its own, as they had the Revolutionary War and then the War of 1812, so Americans knew all about wanting to have your freedom. And help didn't just come from other states. As a matter of fact, all over the world, people came from different countries, all to aid in this noble cause. People came from Ireland, France, Germany. It truly was an international affair. People may think of the Alamo as purely a Texas thing, but clearly what happened here was important to the entire world and made a statement that everyone heard, not just Texas and Mexico. This model does a fantastic job of showing you what it looked like back when the battle happened. You can see that there was a decent amount of land and high walls on every side. The inside part here that we're actually standing in was part of the Mission, which was a church. This was never meant to be a military encampment. They kind of found it and made do the best they could. Today, historians and many societies have done their best to preserve this piece of history that we still have. The walls and the majority of the grounds where the battle happened are long gone and paved over. But here, the actual Mission still stands, and hopefully will remain standing for many generations to come. You can glance into these rooms and see that they were nothing special. It was a very just basic stone structure that these men defended to their last breaths. You could also see some very odd-looking machines on some of the walls. These were there to monitor and record moisture. This Mission was built in 1718, so is over 300 years old, and was never meant to withstand the kind of foot traffic that it goes through today. These moisture records are a very important piece of the puzzle towards making a plan to help preserve the continued life of the Alamo mission. Let's head outside and check out some of the grounds.
Of course, back when the battle happened, this entire area was full of soldiers and volunteers, and they needed somewhere to sleep, so they set up a bunch of tents and different things in the area. This is kind of a recreation of what that may have looked like. Just imagine this setup all over all of these grounds.
The battle that happened here actually started out as more of a siege than anything. General Santa Anna of Mexico arrived with his troops on February 23rd of 1836. They were intent on recapturing the city of San Antonio. However, this small fort filled with rebellious Texans was standing in his way. Santa Anna ordered his troops, who numbered at roughly 1,800 or so, to begin attacking the fort. Inside there were only about 200 to 250 Texans, but they did their best and managed to hold off the Mexican army for almost 2 weeks. But on March 6th, everything changed. Santa Anna ordered his forces to all attack, and they had a huge outright assault on the Alamo. The Texans fought valiantly, but in the end were woefully overmatched. The sheer number of Mexican troops ended up being their undoing. They managed to breach the walls and actually get into the Alamo. By the time it was all over, every Texas defender would be dead. This included some well-known Texas heroes.
Of course, there are many legendary names of the heroes here at the Alamo. To help honor them, they have statues that are kind of littered throughout the grounds. We begin here with one of the most famous, who actually was from Tennessee, not Texas, Mr. Davy Crockett.
Davy Crockett was a legend in his own time and was very famous. He was well known for being a frontiersman and had his famous quote that he said to the Tennessee government, "You may all go to hell, and I will go to Texas." He believed in the Texans' cause and died fighting for that belief. Juan Seguin is honored here and is one of the very few survivors. He was actually sent out to try to get reinforcements before the fighting started. Unfortunately, he arrived back too late. James Bowie is a very well-known figure from the Battle of the Alamo, and everybody remembers him mostly for his signature Bowie knife. He is remembered fondly as a great leader and a very tough man. John William Smith was the very last messenger who managed to get out of the Alamo before the fighting truly started. It is thanks to him that the rest of the Texas Army knew what had happened, and they would soon be saying, "Remember the Alamo," as a battle cry. And finally, William B. Travis, the commander at the Alamo, who gave everything to inspire his men and kept hope alive that no matter what happened here, they stood for something. This plaque commemorates where William B. Travis did pass away, which was right near this white building over the fence, which used to be part of the Alamo grounds.
Right outside the Alamo, we have this beautiful monument that has been erected in honor of all the heroes who sacrificed their lives here. All of their names are written as it wraps around, and then some of the bigger figures are actually represented up here above me in statues. This is an amazing piece. Let's walk around and make sure we see all the angles.
Though the Alamo did end in defeat for the Texans, everything they accomplished here was not in vain. As I mentioned, "Remember the Alamo" soon became a rallying cry for the Texan army. The slaughter that had happened here truly enraged the Texan citizens, and they knew that they had to do whatever they could to defeat Santa Anna. Less than 2 months after that tragic day in March, the Texan army would meet the Mexican army on the fields of San Jacinto. The battle that followed would last a mere 18 minutes. The Texas army led by General Sam Houston, would soon capture Santa Ana, and thus Mexico would agree to the terms of independence and the war ended. Without the spark that the Battle of the Alamo caused, maybe that wouldn't have gone the same way. It's possible that the independence of Texas relied solely on the sacrifice that the brave souls here at the Alamo made that day. For this, they've certainly earned their place in Texas history and deserve to be well honored.
We've now located about a mile away from the Alamo where we were to the San Fernando Cathedral. As we've spoken about, unfortunately all the heroes of the Alamo did perish when they sacrificed their lives that day. The Mexican army then took all of the bodies of the people at the Alamo, put them into piles, and burned them. So they weren't given actual graves. You can't really find graves of any specific people. The closest we have is here at San Fernando Cathedral. They went back later and were able to collect all the remnants that were still there, bones, ashes, things like that, and they put them all together in a really nice kind of sarcophagus that they have set up where people can go in and pay their respects. So we're going to go in and check it out.
This building is absolutely gorgeous, and as far as final resting places go, it's hard to beat something like this. Once you step inside, you see right away the little monument they've set up with the remains right here on display. There's some pictures underneath Texas heroes, and then a sign that proclaims, "Here lies the remains of Travis, Crockett, and Bowie."
For these brave men and all the heroes who died fighting for something they truly believed in, I think it's safe to say that we will always remember the Alamo. Well, that's all the time we have for today, adventurers. My name is David, and this has been Abnormal Voyages. Thanks for tagging along. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching Abnormal Voyages. Thanks for watching.